What's up, everybody? Bandit and Chad here for another Taco Tuesday. So you may be noticing that the upload is going up a little bit later tonight. We actually did already record one iteration of this video a little bit earlier, and then the way technology goes sometimes, it goes away for no apparent reason. So we're gonna try this again. Bear with us here, and hopefully we'll be able to get through it this time. But we do get a lot of questions about power plants here in the Tacomas, and we want to kind of get your all's thoughts on that. So as many of y'all are aware, in the second generation Tacoma, there were two different engine options. You could get the 4-liter V6, which is still present in the current 4Runners, as well as the 2.7-liter inline 4-cylinder. Now that inline 4 did carry over to the new generation trucks. However, instead of the 4-liter V6, we do now have a 3.5-liter V6. Now, for a lot of people, this is not a good thing. For many, there is no replacement for displacement, and any kind of smaller motor, whether it makes more power or not, is not the right answer for some people. Now, we've had a lot of different ideas on what could go into a Tacoma potentially. A few years ago in the 4th gen Tacomas, we thought, or 4th gen 4Runners, I'm sorry, we thought that the V8 that was offered in those, the 4.8 liter, I believe, correct?
4.7.
4.7 liter, I'm sorry. But that engine would probably fit under the hood of a Tacoma. Now, obviously Toyota never did this, and that's why we never had a V8 Tacoma, but that is a really, really interesting option. That is under the hood of our buddy Briggs's 4Runner, and the architecture of the 4Runner and the Tacoma are more or less the same. So it is kind of interesting that they never offered that here in any kind of iteration of the Tacoma. Now, also, we've been hearing rumors and speculation and people really, really wanting Toyota to do a diesel for the Tacoma, and obviously that's never happened, at least up to this point, either. Now, in other markets where the Toyota Hilux is sold, that is predominantly diesel, but here in the States, we've never gotten a diesel, and a lot of that has to do with the EPA regulations and how in other parts of the world the emissions standards are not quite as strict, so you can have those type of vehicles. But here in the States, we have always gotten gas vehicles, and now we are moving on to the 3.5-liter V6 that has been used in Lexus products. Isn't that right?
Yes, absolutely. Lexus has been using it for a while. We think it should be just as reliable. Time will tell for that, but we haven't had any issues with it at all. And it is more fuel efficient compared to the last V6 that was offered in the Tacomas, but at the same time, we're also getting more power out of it, which I think is a good trade-off in my opinion.
Right, and the way this new motor is working, it is running on both the Otto and the Atkinson cycle, so it kind of switches cycle midway, so it can run either on an ultra fuel efficient cycle or also a more powerful upped horsepower and up torque type cycle. So it can kind of switch between the two to kind of optimize driving performance. And we think a lot of the reason that we haven't seen a diesel yet here in the States is because of the way Toyota markets these trucks. Now, these trucks are marketed as kind of the fun to drive either on the weekend or just in your daily driving, and it's kind of like a sporty type truck. Now, obviously, you do have the TRD Sport and the TRD Off-Road along with the SR5 and the Limited and all the other trim levels that you can get. But if you would go to a diesel, more than likely it would feel a little bit sluggish compared to the gas-powered counterparts that we drive around in today. So I think a lot of people would really be happier with the gas-powered truck, and also it does lead to lower prices. Another thing that we've also been thinking about is there are some diesel trucks in other parts of the market, but they're not exactly as reliable as we were expecting, right?
Right. So with the Chevy Colorado and the GMC Canyon, with that 4-cylinder turbo diesel that they offer, there have been problems with it before that. We've noticed, whether it has something to do with the DEF system or just how it runs in general. Not to say that they rushed it, but there are problems with it. And a diesel motor in some ways can be more complicated than a gasoline one.
Right. And with the emission standards that we were just talking about, there is kind of a cleaning cycle that has to take place that uses up that DEF. And from what I understand, when the truck is in that cleaning cycle, you can't turn it off. So you either have to keep driving around or just let the truck kind of sit at a certain RPM range, and that's what it has to do to go through and clean the truck and make sure it's operating the way it should. But with our gas powered trucks, you don't really have to think about all that. When you want the truck on, you hit the button and you drive it. When you want the truck off, you turn the truck off. There's not really anything else associated with it. And there are other kind of costs and practices associated with driving a diesel that we don't often think about, but they are certainly out there. And we're not trying to hate on GM here. Dodge has had similar problems, or Ram rather, with their EcoDiesel, the 3-liter that they have. But it is just something to keep in mind. A lot of people are treating this like it's an obvious move for Toyota. Why they can't understand why they wouldn't create a diesel power plant for the truck. And I think there certainly is a market. Toyota doesn't often talk about the market for these trucks with the diesel motor, but I think there certainly is a market, but a lot more research and fine-tuning has to go in before these kind of come to market, because again, I don't think people should have to change their lifestyle to drive a diesel vehicle. If you do it right, it should just kind of fall into place, and that could certainly happen. But personally, I think you would see a diesel power plant in the Tundra way before you'd ever see it in the Tacoma. But
I agree.
Only time will tell, and hopefully we'll be seeing an updated version of the 4Runner and the Tundra here before too long. And you never know. They could potentially have a diesel power plant in one of those, or they could go a completely different route. We've seen Toyota and other companies start to mess around with hydrogen power plants and hybrid electric power plants. So the future certainly has some interesting ideas, and we're certainly curious to see what the future holds. So along with the different power plants that Toyota is working on, one in particular is starting to shine, and it's actually with kind of the larger truck segment of Toyota. Now, Hino, which is Toyota's larger truck brand, is here in the United States, but they do offer mostly smaller trucks, particularly class 5 through 7 if you're familiar with the classifications. But basically that's like your box truck. It's bigger than just a consumer truck, but not quite a road tractor. Well, it looks like Toyota here is working on what they're calling Project Portal, and what that'll do is put a hybrid or a hydrogen fuel cell power plant in a road tractor. So what they're using to power this truck is 2 of the Toyota Mirai fuel cell packs, along with an 8.8 kilowatt battery, which is a little bit bigger than what you'd find in a Prius. And basically the way that'll work is the hydrogen motors will create electricity. The electricity will be stored in that battery, and then the electric that's stored in the battery will go to power the electric motor. Now, the electric motor in this case produces 670 horsepower and 1,325 foot-pounds of torque. And with all this combined, it will go for about 200 miles on one fill-up. Now, obviously, the fill-up could be a little bit tricky, as we don't have a huge hydrogen infrastructure here in the United States as we would with, say, gas or diesel. But it's certainly an interesting idea. And actually, more news came out about this today, and it was showing kind of a drag race between these 2 trucks. And the hydrogen truck is a good bit faster. You don't have to have any kind of lag time for the turbos to spool up. You don't have any lag time between shifts and anything like that. And it certainly is an interesting idea. Now, a lot of people are going to dismiss this and say, it's just kind of a marketing ploy. We'll never see this come to market. But we've seen a couple different brands of vehicle. We just talked about Tesla last week, potentially producing a road tractor, and we've talked about the Nikola company also producing an electric road tractor. So as poor as the fuel economy is on these road tractors, it's not out of the question to be seeing some kind of alternate power plant in there before long. But we also saw some Jeep news this week, correct?
Yes. So spotted out in LA was a Jeep JL. It was all in the camouflage wrap that you see on these vehicles before they do come to market. A police officer actually pulled it over. I'm not sure why. I don't know if he's exactly speeding in that sort of vehicle, but it was kind of like we've seen in the concepts of it. It did have that slanted front grille, and it did have, the side markers and everything that you would see on those Jeeps, and there's still the traditional Jeep boxy look to it. So, when that does come to market, don't worry, Jeep isn't going to be changing anything too crazy on it.
Exactly. And to finish up this week, we do have some more news from Nissan. Now, a few weeks ago, we were talking about potentially a Nissan Navara type vehicle coming to the United States as the next version of the Frontier. Now, someone asked the CEO of Nissan here in the United States if that was the case, or at least what was going on with the Nissan Frontier. You know, we haven't really seen a whole lot about it, but we have heard all about the new Titan, and that seems to be what Nissan's focusing on. But the CEO said we will not be getting any sort of variant of the Navara here in the United States, and the reason for that is they're actually going to do something a little bit different. Now, the Navara is what he called more of a lifestyle vehicle, and he actually compared it directly to the Honda Ridgeline. But he said that trucks are in Nissan's DNA, and they have been so for a very long time, and he feels like the U.S. deserves a more rugged, bigger, overall better truck. And so he didn't really give a timeline on this, but it is pretty exciting. You know, the Tacoma is still body on frame, the GM Twins are still body on frame, and they can make for some pretty capable vehicles, whether towing or on the trails or whatever. So hopefully Nissan will be joining the mix here before too long, but honestly, it really doesn't make sense why they've waited this long. You know, with the GM Twins selling as well as they have, and Toyota selling as well as it has, and you know, the whole truck segment is absolutely booming right now with cheap gas, which we can all enjoy. But you know, as the farther Nissan pushes this new truck off, the more revenues they are kind of wasting. But they're actually talking with the CEO as well about that, and he said even the Frontier sales, which is basically what now, a 12-year-old truck, I believe it came out in 2005 if I remember correctly. Right. Even that truck has seen a 42% increase in sales. So like I said, trucks are just absolutely booming right now, and I'm sure a new version of the Frontier would do Nissan really well.
I agree.
So that pretty much wraps up everything we have to talk about for this week. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Again, we do apologize for the late upload, but let us know what you think about power plants in the Tacoma. Are you happy with the V6, or does a 4-cylinder suit your needs, or would you rather see something different? Personally, I wouldn't hold your breath for a V8, but you know, would you rather have that? Would you rather have a diesel, or would you rather see something different? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
See you guys.